Good morning, everybody. Welcome to First Center for Spiritual Living in New York City. I'm the pastor, Dr. Greg. I want to welcome the people on the Zoom call. I'm sure there's many of you, and I also want to reach out to those of you who are watching on Facebook, Instagram, where else are we broadcasting? YouTube. This would be a great time for you to send us a message, and it's always wonderful if you can join us on Zoom, because after I'm done with the lesson, many of you share your thoughts and your ideas, and I know a lot of you get a lot out of it. So all you have to do is, if you want to join us, is send us your information, and they can connect you right now. And if you're listening throughout the week, because I know a lot of you do it that way also, you won't be able to be with us live today, but we will be able to send you our e-letter with an invitation for next week. Okay, so this morning we're going to come together to celebrate something that's vitally important. We're all, most of us who come together, believe in the fullness and the richness of life. We believe that our good is here, and it's here now. Not later, but now. In other words, these are the good old days, right here, right now. So let's let that understanding come into our awareness right now, that the good of God, the good of life is here. It's here now. It's operating within you. And wherever I go after I leave here will be fine with me. That was a statement of Dr. Barker's, who was the founder of First Center, formerly called First Church here in New York. Wherever I go after I leave here will be fine with me. I want to live and experience my good and my life now. And I want to be here, and I'm not terribly interested, he thought, in where I'm going. Our focus is on experiencing the good, the beauty, right here, right now. And today I'm going to be using one of his I think one of his great talks. I only had a couple of days with it. I'd like to have more time with it. But he went on to say, we believe that the infinite intelligence has provided everything necessary for the individual right here and right now. We have everything we need within us for happiness and joy. So today's talk, I think, is entitled, Are You Interesting? And it's something that Jimmy and Anthony dug up from our archives. And I got it on Friday, and I wish I had a little bit more time with it. It's pretty good. He asked the question, is your life interesting? Okay, I'll ask that question to myself and to all of you. Is your life interesting? That was his title, and I'm going to share some of his thoughts on that question. We'll see what happens. Before we do, let us relax for a moment. You might close your eyes or just relax yourself in whatever way you do, and take a breath, or in my case, a sip of my coffee. And take into your subconsciousness, the thought that there is one mighty intelligence, one cosmic mind. You might recall this idea. Behold, I make all things new. Comes from a Christian scripture. Behold, I make all things new, said the Lord. We are immersed in this thing. We are the vehicles of it. It's in our consciousness right now. It's in us as total good, and it's wonderful. And it's expanding our thought. The topic again today, is your life interesting? And if it's interesting, it's because you are an interesting person. And if your life isn't particularly interesting to you, Barker said it's because you're not an interesting person. But the greatest thing about this world is that we can always change. Louise Hay always said the point of power is in the present moment. So we can always change. There's lots of ways to change. You've got to start to look for them, of course, and begin to put them in practice. Everything is at hand. The kingdom is at hand. The glory is at hand. All the opportunities are here. You have everything you need. I have so well reminded of Reverend Theodora at this moment, who always says, I have placed in you everything that you need for your, how did she say it, Celia?
Your care and keeping.
For your care and your keeping. I have placed everything within you that you need for your care and keeping. So we can start wherever we are. Here we are in New York City. This is one of the greatest cities in the world, most people think. But wherever you are, New York has every possibility, right? All kinds of fascinating people, fascinating situations. There's so many things to do. I've been here for 5 years, and I was thinking when I was doing this talk, my goodness, I need to get out more. I need to see the museums. I need to see so many things. Why? Because like probably many of us, I get into a routine or I get into a rut, and I don't challenge myself as much as I'd like. Dr. Barker said in this lesson is people don't go outside of their routines very much. He said most people get up approximately the same time every day. They may take the same bus, the same route if they're driving. If it's on the train, they'll get off in the same stop, use the same elevators, go to the same office and repeat it back at night. Or they're in school, they're working, and they're exhausted. They're exhausted with this, that, or the other thing. They're busy with the kids. They don't have a lot of time for anything fun or anything new. They've got a routine going on. They might stop at their favorite restaurant on their way home or their favorite coffee shop. And I'm thinking, here I am in New York City 5 years, and I always seem to gravitate towards one particular restaurant. I mean, I'm better than a lot of people. I like to experience new places, and I do go them, but I routinely go to one place as I think about it. And as he's talking in this lesson, he's suggesting to us, try new things. There's nothing wrong with the routine, but there's little new if you're doing everything the same. So if you're one of those people who are really caught up in doing the same old thing all the time, he says, what are you going to do to change that? Some of you might not want to change it. Dr. Barker challenged his listeners by saying, the infinite mind did not create you to be a monotonous person. It created you to be an exciting, creative, outgoing, functioning individualization of itself. That's how it created you. That's why you had 5 senses. You want to be able to hear new things, see things, taste new things, touch, smell. So you can look around and you can see everything you want to see. Health and creativity and beauty and joy, everything is right there in front of us, but we don't really see it. We're a little bit like horses with blinders on. But the glory and the good is always around us, and maybe we need to, challenge ourselves to see it. Sometimes we just do our thing, we go through our routines, and we don't even expand our friendships. And he was challenging us in that particular talk that we always want to be expanding our friendships. He said it's vitally important to have good people and new people in our lives. There was a teacher at the center, formerly called a church years ago, Dr. Brown, and he lived to be almost 100, and he was an interesting person, Dr. Barker thought, and he was fascinating as can be. And he was a lecturer, he was a writer, he was a businessman, he was many things. One thing with all of his people working for him, he would never have an employee that stay with him for a long time. He conducted various businesses, and he said he didn't believe in having long-term employees, and he would never have an employee over the age of 22. And I thought about that. I thought, I don't know if that sounds terribly wise, but he said, when I hire these young people, I say to them, on your 22nd birthday, you're going to go get a new job. Barker said that man was in his 80s and 90s when he knew him, and he said he always looked like he was about 60. So that was his routine. It wasn't my routine, said Barker. I don't know if I could work with that, all those kids. But this man made it work. He was a very interesting person. He was always listening to new ideas, and he was willing and wanting always to shift his staff around. He always wanted to switch it up, and he wanted to look at his business the same way he wanted to look at life, from many different perspectives. And that was his way. And now, did that have anything to do with his long life and his lack of stress? Barker said, I don't know. I have no way of knowing whether it added years to his life or not. But he kept himself surrounded with fresh ideas and people who were enthusiastic. He would never go out with old friends, or he did so not very often. He looked, he had a comment about older friends. He said, if I just hang out with old ideas, it contributes to the aging process. And Barker explained that we should have old friends. We cherish our older friends, and I hope you have them. They're wonderful. But we do live in a universe of infinite variety. There's all kinds of things and there's all kinds of people, because the infinite mind never repeats itself. So let's invite in some new thoughts, new people, new routines. The infinite variety in which we are forever immersed is connected with all things, and it's here to be experienced more richly. We're here to be seen, we're here to see things, we're here to taste things, touch things, experience things, smell things. We're here to live as though we are alive, meet new people, try new things. If you have the eyes to see beauty and wonderment, the thing to understand is beauty is here. It's all around you. Maybe we could try to switch some things around. Maybe we could try new routes, new experiences. I've determined this weekend I'm going to go out and see some places in New York. Why not, right? It's right here. I remember when I lived in Washington when I was younger, I spent 3 years going to all the museums in Washington because they're there and they're available and they're amazing. And I'm sure wherever you live, it's probably true for you also. So here's the challenge today, is to experience some of these places. Read new books. When's the last time you read a new book? Meet new people. We're here to learn. We're here to experience things in a new way, to awaken, and to realize that all we need is right here. For the great multitude, and for many of us, monotony has a way of creeping into our life. It comes in through the back door of your mind. And monotony, Barker thought, is one of the greatest sins that we've ever had. I'm not worried about the other sins, he said, but I'm worried about monotony. I'm concerned about those of you, too, who have given up on life. You've given up on yourselves, given up on life, and you're not experiencing wonder or wonderment. You're not experiencing joy. And all of that's available to all of us. You don't have to be rich to be experiencing joy and wonderment. You know, that's available right here, right now. Louise Hay said in the book, You Can Heal Your Life, whatever it is that you're experiencing, she would say it's only a thought you're having about something, and a thought can be changed. So let's be committed to becoming interesting, right? And seeing things through the eyes of a child, seeing things with wonderment. So Barker said, I'm not concerned about those of you who, I'm only concerned about those of you who have given up on yourselves, or given up on life, and given up on wonder and newness and joy. And he said, I'm also worried about the mind that slows down. I'm worried about that too, because you get to a certain age, you really want to challenge yourself to utilize your mind. I remember Dr. Bill Tolliver years ago said you live at a time where you can commune with some of the greatest minds that have ever lived. And to that end, I personally try to read new things. I try to watch things, listen to things on YouTube, everything from history to philosophy to new ways of thinking about things. I'm constantly trying. Now, I'm devoted to learning, so it's not that I'm trying, I'm always doing it. Barker was worried about the mind that slows down, the mind that gets dull, the mind that has no further imagination. He said, now Jesus told the people around him that they should become like the little children. Now that's a very wise statement, because I'm sure he saw people struggling in dull routines back then. The past, living in the past, and not considering new approaches, new ways of living. You see, Barker thought children are never dull, not for a moment. He says it's so exciting when you are a child. Everything is new and everything is exciting, beyond anything most of us can think of today. Now, I was thinking about that this weekend, and I remember at a time when I was very young, and I was really excited learning that if I mixed blue Play-Doh and yellow Play-Doh together, what would I get? It would get green, and I thought that was miraculous. I created green, and I can remember having a sense of excitement about this. I had a sense of excitement about everything when I was a kid. Everything was an adventure. And if you can't remember anything, for yourself, I'm sure you can if you challenge yourself. Barker suggested just talk to a mother or father about their kids and what they come up with. Or if you can, just spend an afternoon or a couple hours with some younger kids, right? The children for the first 5 or 6 years, maybe 7, are living in a place of wonder. He says, after that, Barker said, they start like the rest of us to begin to get a little bit dull. He said, but before that, they're just something to behold. They can think up of the most interesting and amazing things. They are so fascinated with life. They are so fascinated with colors. They're fascinated with sound. They're fascinated with all the things around them. And they're interesting as can be because they're intrigued and interested by everything. See, that's the thing about being an interesting person. If you're interesting to others, it's most likely because you're interested in them and you're interested in life and you're excited about life, right? So you're the person who's carrying that consciousness of positive expectancy, looking to see the good in God and everything. And you become fascinating to people because what people get in the world oftentimes is not that. Gradually, as we evolve, as we grow up, as we mature, we lose a lot of this wonderment, a lot of this intrigue, a lot of this joy. We might revive it a bit in our teens. We might revive it upon occasion when we are in love or where there's a birth of a child or a grandchild or something really grabs our attention. Dr. Barker again stated that he felt the greatest single sin in our life is monotony. So that day he was really challenging us all to really begin to switch it up a bit. He says it's so easy to become dull and live in monotony because it's comfortable. And it is. I thought about it, my routines, and I thought, yeah, that's a routine. Yeah, this is a routine, a bunch of routines. He said it's so easy to get into a routine where you're not experiencing all these things you could be. And then he was commenting on his own apartment, and he hadn't done anything with it in 20 years. And he asked the question, have you rearranged any of your furniture lately? Or have you even changed a picture on the wall lately? Have you created space in your closet or your closets for new things? Or is everything in your apartment and your life so crowded in your time? Is everything so crowded there's no space for anything new? There's no time for new friends. Dr. Barker, in this particular lesson, suggested having new friends and younger friends is very, very important. Many people will realize, as these questions have been asked, that they haven't changed very much in many ways in their homes and in their routines or with their people. And they'll come to realize, oh my goodness, there is a certain amount of monotony present. He noted, again, the only thing he had changed was a single picture in his apartment in many, many years. And he said, I better start practicing what I preach. I'm going to go out and experience some new places and new things and make some new friends and associations. He said, because I never, never, never want to be dull. And I think it's safe to say he never was dull. As I recall all the stories of my predecessors, Dr. Barker would enter a hall, wearing a bright fire engine red suit or a yellow suit, and I would think he was anything but dull from listening to him. But he said, I would never want to be dull. And he went right back into the discussion. We're living in such an exciting time, he thought. And I'm thinking 40 years later or so, human knowledge is doubling every couple days. It's mind-boggling. We want to embrace things that are new. And we know that Spirit is unfolding in us and everywhere. And somehow we have to stir up the awareness that we have this presence within us. And it's in the world also. No matter what the world looks like, Spirit is there. Spirit is unfolding majestically and perfectly in all places and in all people. And we have the ability to know this about ourselves and experience life full of wonder and in a very new way. And this statement for this morning, he said, was for himself as much as it was for the audience. And he said, we better get something new going on and interesting and wonderful in our lives. He said, you owe it to yourself. And we're talking about, in addition to all the things that we have, and we're not talking necessarily about objects. So let's think about getting something new into our life, bringing in some type of aliveness, excitement. Focus on some new things. I'm going to take myself to a few museums. Start to expect positive expectancy. That's putting a demand on consciousness. That's what we teach here. Many people have increased their lifespan also, he thought, through hobbies. And in retirement, they have retirement jobs, maybe different kinds of jobs, part-time, or they volunteer. They do things that they like. The list is endless. But he thought, perhaps increase their lifespan by getting engaged in things. They may now be in an office or a business situation that seems monotonous, and if so, he challenged them to find new ways to think about their business, find new ways about what they're doing with their time at work. He said you can also create interesting situations by changing things on the outside. Spiritually speaking, he said we are here. We have been created to live our lives and to be alive, alert, vital, interesting, and productive. We don't think the infinite intelligence made a mistake when it created us. Not me and not you. We are one with this intelligence. We live, we move, we have our being in it. We all have power at our disposal. So we all have the ability and the capability, but we have lost sight of it somehow. You've forgotten about the power and potential you have. Maybe some of you on the call have never heard anybody say that to you before. Ernest Holmes, our founder, said there's power for good in the universe, and you can use it. It's in you, operating through you. If there's a mistake, Dr. Barker said, it's in the way we use the power we have. Because you have the power, and everything's happening now. And the question will be asked, well, how am I going to do it differently? And Dr. Barker said, I thought about this for this morning, and I wrote up an affirmation, which I'm going to share for you. How am I going to do it differently? He said to say to yourself, all right, mind, I am open and I'm receptive to new, fresh, creative, vital ideas. And I know they are in me. Again, you could say to yourself, all right, mind, I am open and receptive to new, creative, and vital ideas. I am open to change. And an important sentence, I am open and receptive to changes in my life. As we mature, we have a tendency to resist change. Another phase is the health of mind, the health of spirit. So we want to be open as we mature. We really want to be open at every point in our life. So I'm open and I'm receptive to new ideas would be an affirmation. I'm open to creative ideas, vital ideas. That's saying a lot. But if I just say it, will it do it? And Barker said, no, it won't happen by you just saying I'm open to new ideas. But he said, if you say it long enough and you bring yourself to a place of belief, he says, when you really believe it, then you'll make changes and things start happening. That's why repetition is so important. We've always learned to do repetition. We learned to do repetition when we were learning the alphabet as kids, when we were learning our multiplication tables. Repetition's important. Many of us, Barker claimed, have been dull for a very long time. So if we want to create a new habit or new thought, we repeat it. Start taking different routes, trying different things. He said, and New Yorkers, try a new deli. You've been going to the same deli forever. When you attempt to change something, and maybe you embrace this affirmation that I'm open and receptive to new ideas, creative ideas, vital ideas, when we affirm it long enough, we feel it, we take it in, we will eventually believe it. And when we believe it, the subconscious mind acts upon it and projects it into form. You've heard the expression before, as within, so without. So if I'm embracing a lot of exciting ideas within me and I really start to believe them, then they're going to be reflected in my world. So I want to say to all of you, since change is always part of life, our intention is to embrace change rather than resist it. We want to embrace change and know that there's something exciting happening. There will be changes made anyway, and they're going to, he said, and I'm going to say they're going to be pleasant changes. So there's another affirmation for you today. There's going to be changes made, and they're going to be pleasant changes. How's that? He said, if you can say that and start to believe it, you bring that in your consciousness, then the changes are going to be pleasant. And tell yourself you're going to be happy. And you're going to be happy with the changes that you're going, and you're going to become excited about life. I know I talk and have been speaking about positive expectancy for many years, and Dr. Barker referred to it as divine excitement. Having divine excitement about life each and every day. Having positive expectancy or divine excitement about life every day. When we're coming from a place of connection, this is a more contemporary way of saying it. When we're awake and we're alert and we're alive and we know we're coming from a connected place, a place where we know we're connected with spirit, when we have this positive thing going on and we know that we're one with the one, you might notice that there's an excitement within us over this process. And we bring that into our lives. And the individual who can find this inner happiness and excitement and joy and tap into this creativity, this aliveness, they'll have a sense of vitality, and it won't matter if they're 8 or 80. When you've got that connection, that sense of aliveness, you've got everything. You can't lose then. That was Dr. Ike. Can't lose with the stuff you use. If you bring yourself to that point of awareness where you know you're one with it, and then you're looking at everything with freshness and excitement. And you can't lose if you're in touch with that, coming from that place, aware of that. People say to ministers and therapists and friends, my life is the way it is because of this or because of that. And then they give the minister or the therapist every kind of reason and rationalization, explanation. And oftentimes they're talking about what's wrong. And it's because of something or someone in the past, something that's happened. And true or not, they're in a loop about things that have happened in the past. Raymond Charles Barker was not a trained therapist, but when he heard this type of stuff which he heard all the time, which is people going into their stories, he would simply say to them, change it. Whatever it is, whatever the circumstance was, he would say, change it. Change whatever it is rather than keep arguing and keep explaining away some negative condition or state. After all, we come right back to one central idea. Whatever the challenge and whatever the person is or whatever the situation is, we are hanging on to some kind of a belief. Whatever it is, it's only a thought you're having, and a thought can be changed. You do have the power to do something about most things. You know, if you change your thought about the person, place, or situation, you have the ability to change that thought. So Dr. Barker would challenge you, I'm sure if he were here, to switch it up, to change it, to change the lesser idea that you're holding on to for the greater. Change any belief or any thought that's holding you back for a greater and more expansive one. Maybe it's time for some of us just to let some of these situations entirely go. Resentments, definitely. Anger, anything within us. Prejudices of every kind, let them go, it's not worth it. Maybe it's time to let a person go, or to think about something in an entirely new way. We talk a lot about the 4 agreements and all the stuff our family came in with and taught us and things that we believed as children. Maybe it's time to let some of that go. If you intend to be an interesting person, he said, and have an interesting life, maybe it's time to challenge some of that and let it go. He said, please don't spend any time trying to change people. It's a waste of your time. There's not enough time to do that. He says there's plenty enough, and you can't do it anyway. He says there's enough for you to do. We do our work in mind. We do our work in consciousness. There's enough right here to keep you busy, as Agatha would say, working on Agatha. Or I don't know if she's listening today. There's enough going on within us, you know, in our own consciousness to work on. Because when you really settle things with yourself and you work on yourself and you develop this sense of wonderment and positive expectancy, you'll be not only helping yourself, you'll be helping everybody you ever touch or spend time with. We're all working on ourselves and our own consciousness. We do our work here in mind and consciousness. And Dr. Barker said, and if you have no intention of changing, he says, just quit talking about it. He stopped the whole thing, right? He said, and if you're caught up in languaging your problems, if only, I'll be okay if only, and this will be all right if only, and you rest on a lot of buts, but. If you're talking, you language yourself, and you keep on talking in terms of living your life as a victim, he says, none of that's going to help you. The way out of all of this, or the way back, is to enter a new moment where you can drop that story. Enter a new moment where you can see things new. Enter a new moment where you have no hate, no anger, no resentment. Enter a new moment so you can experience the excitement of being alive. Barker was remembering an author on that particular morning. And the author had written about the living dead. And he said this guy was saying most of the people who are living are not alive while they're here. Think about that. And I've talked about this before in other lessons. You've got the majority of people living out there reacting to everything in the world. They don't realize that they're caused to their own experience. They go to the office, they come home, they interact with people, they react all over the place. They're not consciously living their lives. They aren't alive while they're here. They'll go to the same stores, they'll do the shopping, occasionally they'll go to a doctor, they'll come home, they'll do this, they'll do that, they'll turn on the TV, they'll watch the same shows. Years ago, First Church, First Center had another, Louise Hay was our most famous student. We also had an author, Florence Shin, associated with us years ago. And Florence got a call from someone who was an old acquaintance. And the person said to Florence, it's been 30 years since you and I have been in touch with each other, and the person wanted to come and have lunch and talk about the old days and talk about the people they once knew and so on and so forth. And Florence replied, "I'm so sorry, I can't do that." And the question, why? Why can't you do that? She says, "I don't live my life backwards. I go forward. I don't really have any interest in talking about the old days and all the people who have been married and divorced and all the things that have happened." And Barker commented at the time, he didn't know if he could be quite that blunt or that abrupt, but he knew Florence, and he said she definitely didn't want to spend time, any time of the day, being caught up in yesterday. He commented that he probably would have gone to lunch and listened to them, so on and so forth. Nonetheless, Florence provided an important lesson. She, Barker exclaimed, lived knowing that I am a today person in today's situation. That was one of his favorite sayings. I am a today person in today's situation. Yesterday, he famously said, ended last night. I am a today person in today's situation. We have to find a way to get past our past, forgive ourselves and forgive everyone else, forgive them all. If you're hanging on to anything, you're preventing yourself from experiencing the beauty, the aliveness, the joy, the wonderment that's all here, right now. So he said Florence had a point, and our interest in this teaching is always going to be in the now, right here, right now, in this new moment. Now, of course, he commented, you could be one of these gloomy people. And he went on to comment, there's always people coming at them and telling them what's going on in the world and what's wrong. And ask him, did you read the paper this morning? Do you know all the troubles of the world and all this? And he says, no, I'll wait till the afternoon after the service till I'll read the paper. And then he says, I'll teach myself to see the situation rightly, because rarely there's much truth in what I read in the paper. He said, to be interesting is to live an interesting life and have an interesting perspective, to see the good, the fullness, to go out and to do new things, to bring new people into your life, and not wait for things to happen, not wait long. Call people, do things, write letters. Today I'd say email, pick up the phone. Don't wait for the other person to do it. If you've got the consciousness to connect. Most people, he thought, do live in yesterday, and he wasn't really with it. I'm going to wrap things up today, he said, knowing that this creative visual universe is exciting. It's exciting, it's in me, and it's in everything. And monotony, he said, is nothing I want anything to do with. He says, I think it's the key to the aging process. And when he went to that subject, he says, it's not for me. I'm going to resist monotony. He thought of it being one of the great sins. I'm open and receptive to new ideas, creative ideas, exciting ideas, and I want them now. Because all of life is here and all of life is now. For a closing, he said, now, if all of the life of God, the mind of God, the heart of God, the being of God is in you and through you, he said, and it is, then you better wake up. Wake up, people, if you're living lives of monotony or you're sleeping, and rise from the dead. Challenge yourself to be more, to free yourself. He said the free person arrives from the dead when they know that they've been trapped in their own minds by their own routines, their own monotony, by the usual, by the traditional, by what everybody's doing these days. He says, life is exciting. He says, I want you to know there's still great musicians, there's great artists being born, great dancers, great everything, great smart innovation, businesswomen, businessmen. They're coming into fruition and they're going to do great and wonderful things in the world. Get excited about them. Get excited about life. He says you'll benefit by watching them. Or he says you'll miss it all if you keep doing your routines. He liked spending time in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He says, but you don't just go there and walk through. He says, you spend some time. He says, open yourself up, you know. He says, there's so much there. And I know any of us can do that in any of our communities who are listening. Do something this afternoon. He was winding down a long talk. Do something this afternoon you haven't done before. Or if you can't do it today, do it tomorrow. He said, New Yorkers, try New Delhi, if it's different. For my people in Florida, instead of going to Publix, try Albertsons or try another market. Do things, even if it's not exciting, he says, do some things that are different. At least it will be a change. So he said, you have to start with yourself. The infinite helps those who help themselves. There's no power, there's no presence, mind, or spirit anywhere that's going to say, hey, all right, I want you to be happier. But there is a power of the mind and spirit that responds to you, to your mood, your attitude, your interest, and it gives you whatever you need in any field. The infinite mind responds by corresponding to what lives within you as an effect. It responds by becoming the thing which the individual has accepted and honestly believes. So if you could accept that you're here to have an exciting life, a wonderful life with exciting people and new things and new people, if you could accept that you're here to shine and to go forward and really have this great existence, if you could accept that, you're going to begin to have that show up in your experience. But you have to create it yourself in order to have it on the outside. So sum it up. Let's go back. If you are wanting to have an interesting life, it's because you're an interesting person. And if you're leading a dull life, Dr. Barker said it's because you're a dull person. But definitely you can do something about it. The universe is evolving and it's constantly changing. You can go with it and you can evolve consciously and with excitement without struggle. Anyone can change at any time if they really decide to. And if you're willing to be open and expand, and see what's new. As we mature, maybe it's not as easy to believe in new ideas. He says it's easier for mature people to believe in the negative ones, but he really wants us to actively challenge that. We can go there, we can get there. I think this is a good place to challenge ourselves. I want to hear what your thoughts are on what it is to be an interesting person, and if anything came up for you this morning in terms of some of Barker's more provocative challenges about developing a more interesting life and what our routines are and what routines we might be able to change to bring in new opportunities and new ways of living. So we'll close now and we'll take a minute break and we'll see you back. If you on Facebook, Instagram, send us the chat request and we'll invite you into the Zoom. See you in a minute.